Hi there, Casey Shepard, Integrative Health Coach here, coming at you guys with more information and education all the time. I think the more information and education that you have, the more you can empower yourself, the better decisions that you can make all the time. When you understand things from a better perspective and just in a different way, when it finally clicks, it enables you to continue to make those better decisions all the time. If you're going through health issues or are on your own healing journey, just finding different ways to look at things from a different perspective. And other things to look into. So I think it's important, especially in integrative health or on the fitness side or on the actual Western medicine side, that people have this perspective. I think there's a lot of people out there who are so set in their ways, so set on the knowledge that they have and the way that they do things, that they close themselves off, not only number one, to just furthering themselves and becoming a better coach, teacher, mentor, advisor, doctor, NP, MD, but also helping patients at the same time. So for me, I'm somebody who continually loves to sit back and analyze and put the pieces together. And over time, I would say that there have been so many aha moments, when I was on my own healing journey or throughout the years of bits of information and different things that I have come upon in research and trial and error and, education and all of those things that I just thought were like the end all be all to things that were like the next best thing that would just fix everybody. And you learn that over time, and it humbles you that is not the case. And so I don't think there's anyone out there who can claim that their way is the best way or that they, know what's best for everyone. The reality is we don't. And that's the frustrating part working with patients and clients and all the things sometimes is that, people lose, motivation. They don't stick with it long enough. None of us practitioners or coaches or any of that have all the answers or know how a client or patient's going to respond to something right off the bat. So just having a larger wheelhouse to choose from and understand, right off the bat with somebody is always going to be your greatest asset. You have enough experience and education to know, based on this person's symptoms, their history, what they've tried, what they've done, their body type, like the intake process gets, over time bigger and longer as we gather more information and we see how much certain bits of information are important when you're starting to work with somebody or when you're, wanting to start off on the right foot in the right direction to not waste time. But everyone responds differently. Everyone takes different protocols differently. Everybody's body shifts in different ways. And so that's just the reality of how healing goes on that side. Now, for people who have very well-functioning body, who are very responsive, who have healthy metabolism, who have balanced hormones, the process is typically very simple. For people who have more complex things going on, they've had years and years and years of health issues or disease, or they're suffering from some major issues, there are several things that are going to be off. Every doctor, provider, whatever, is going to have a different way that they would decide to start somebody and tackle that problem. And you're going to get a million different answers from a million different people. And I think as, providers and coaches, like, it is hard when people come to you after they've tried so many things and even off the bat, they're just so discouraged. But I went through it too. There's no way around it. You really at this point just have to educate yourself on as much as you can and then go with somebody who you feel has the best knowledge base for what you feel and what you're at that point. You can't really just blindly be picking people anymore either. So that's why I like to talk about a lot of this stuff. Very long intro here, but today, out of the shower, not ready at all. I just was like processing so much that I'm like, I don't even care. I just want to make this video right now. But I want to talk about menopause and women and get into it like a little bit deeper and not like the science, but just the systems, and why some people say like F your hormones, or like it's not that simple, you're just not getting away with it as much anymore, or you're, just being lazy, or you gotta be stronger mindset. All of those things are things that are often very repeated through a lot of people in the industry, and it's something that is hard to hear. I wrote a blog post yesterday about physiological versus mental, which part is physiological, which part is mental. It's one of those things that I feel like highly correlates to that. And when you have extreme hormone shifts because of the way that the entire body system moves together, that is one of those things that can create that dissonance with the mental space, and being truly controlled by it. You look into mental health disorders, serotonin, dopamine, neurotransmitter, mood disorders, bipolar disorder. All of those people don't have the control over their mind. There's something that's hormonally triggering those things. And so it is one of those battles of back and forth, like which one is it? Yes, there's always going to have to be a certain amount of discipline. There's always going to have to be a certain mindset in order to get through something. But if there's enough stuff off at one point, it can carry over into the mental, can make it harder to have that willpower, to have the positivity, to have the discipline, and then to truly have the physiological stuff going on at the same time, where you're bloated, you're not feeling well, your hormones are truly off, things are triggering on a deeper level. It just can create like pure chaos in someone's body. And there are people who seamlessly go through menopause. Obviously, I can't speak to it. I hopefully have many years until that happens at this point. But I've helped many people through it, and I understand what happens when people are going through it. I understand the hormonal changes. But even on a cellular level, like those go beyond hormones. And I think like that is my now like tagline is think of the cells, like the cells drive the hormones, and the cells need to be happy and properly functioning in order for the hormones to be acting the way that they need to. And so when you realize the synergistic meaning working together, or antagonistic, where this and this are fighting for each other, when you start to learn synergistic and antagonistic relationships in the body, you see how quickly stuff can spiral. And so hormones have synergistic and antagonistic relationships with our gut microbiome. Our hormones have synergistic and antagonistic relationships with our cells and our inflammation and our minerals. And they don't just go one way, it goes back and forth. So if you have an extreme hormone fluctuation, you will have on the opposite end a different reaction. And so, yes, are there people who have hormones plummet and their body stays in a stable place internally and they don't have those crazy shifts? Yes, of course. Those are the people that say, I still work out, I'm feeling better than ever, whatever. Then you have the people that crazily is not a word, extremely struggle, and they may have a shift in dopamine and serotonin. They might start eating worse because of that. They may have a shift at a cellular level. Hormonally, if something tanks, it could have an inverse relationship to their mineral content and the way that their system is even hydrated, the way that their pancreas creates insulin and drives energy into the cell to use as energy, or the way that their gallbladder is functioning to break down food. Your estrogen and your ovaries stop producing. It could also have an effect on your thyroid. And if that starts going out, it can cause the digestion to slow. Stomach acid production goes down. We stop breaking down food the same way. Pathogens enter into the intestinal tract. Suddenly we have extreme dysbiosis. The hormones are off, the gut's off, the digestion is off. this person will obviously feel like crap mentally, psychologically, and so if this was the example in this scenario of this person that has everything off, and you're sitting there telling them, you just need to be more disciplined, and like clearly you're not getting away with as much as you were getting away with before. Like a lot of people tell people that are in menopause, it's very frustrating, but you don't hear people say what I just said to you. You hear people say, well, yeah, your hormones are shifting, but you just got to push through and keep working out. But everyone's going to be on a completely different spectrum of how this happens to them. And I've said this before, on an energy level, especially with dieting, like if you have a lot of inflammation, some autoimmune, something is triggered in your gut, or you have your microbiome is disrupted, or something does happen in your, gut, it can cause issues with your pancreas and, insulin resistance, whatever. But you are not then, even on the food that you are intaking, pulling that glucose into the cell to utilize as energy. And a lot of these people have these insane cravings, whether they're like drinking more, or they're eating off plan all the time, or they're whatever, or even if they're not eating off plan and they're being super disciplined, but the body is like starving for energy and starving for nutrients because the cells are so inflamed. Nothing is getting in and out of that cell. And again, as I said, the cells rule everything. Those cells need to be healthy. And that's why autoimmune is so hard on the system, because you have so much inflammation at a cellular level that you are having issues with your immune system even staying strong, but then getting the energy into the cell, absorbing nutrients correctly. All of your, you see all systems are in disarray and just don't function normally. So sometimes, especially for postmenopausal women, let's say you're going to go the bioidentical hormone replacement route and you do want to get on hormones, or you're going to go on a cream to just give yourself a bump, whatever. A lot of times that's enough to calm the system, where your hormones are happy enough where it can keep your digestion in place. Shifting the hormones alone can shift a lot of the whole internal system. Everything kind of has this like back and forth relationship in the system. And that's why you have to be able to look at all moving parts. Like, what's this person experiencing? What are they, all of the background information before you can say like, I think this is going to help the most. Let's do this first, whatever. And for a very long time, I just thought working with hormones was always going to carry over, and that's just not the case. And then you have women who aren't going to ever be on hormone replacement after they get to a certain age, and then you have to deal with the other side of it. If we're not going to go back on these, the internal system will be in a different place. For some, their internal system's never going to be happy. And for others, it just takes trial and error with, what's the minimum amount of, balancing on the hormonal side that keeps the body working properly and happy. And if it's not happy and it goes out, then we have to dive in and take a deeper look. What's different with the digestion? What sort of dysbiosis? What sort of pathogens do we have? Something hormonal shifts the way that your body utilizes minerals, and the balance between minerals in your metabolic system. That inverse relationship again. Estrogen tanks, suddenly your body starts absorbing more magnesium, which, in turn causes sodium and potassium stores to come down. And so just, everything. And that's why it's so complex. I'm not saying I have all the answers to everybody. I know very well how to look at things and give options and figure out the best case scenario and what would be the best option at the time and present that to people. But no one is ever going to be able to tell somebody the best way to go through a process like that and how they're going to react. I don't know how I'm going to react when I hit menopause. I know what I'm going to try, I know what I'm going to test, I know what I would like to do. But for everyone else who doesn't have this understanding of their own body and their system, or even any underlying issues that they could have had prior to menopause, if they had thyroid issues their whole life, or they had, maybe they were hypothyroid for a long time, never knew it, or they had, all these issues their whole life, then hit menopause, and then it's a whole nother animal. I mean, there's a lot of different scenarios, but I really wanted to give a different perspective on that pull, that back and forth, those synergistic and antagonistic relationships that can happen, because I would say that like menopause is probably one of the most extreme hormonal shifts that can happen in any one woman's life. Pregnancy would be obviously the other in complete opposite way, and that's a whole nother, topic of discussion. In terms of how the body reacts and how it can reset and bring out, long-time problems, whatever. But just so that you understand, if you're somebody who's going through menopause, somebody who's gone through it or who's struggling, it might be time to look a little bit deeper, to look at some of these other systems. Menopausal women, in a way, are a little bit easier to work with. Once they're all the way through. Like if you're premenopausal, you're going to be up and down a lot. It does get harder to nail down, especially with timing of labs and, cycle timing and stuff. But postmenopausal women don't have those like hormone fluctuations up and down. They're at like a more of a baseline, like set level. It does make it a little bit easier to figure out in a way. But there's a lot of ways that I work with women like that, even if they're not like wanting to jump on complete hormone replacement therapy, which I don't do anyways. I refer out to that. I work with somebody that does that kind of stuff. But there's so many different things you can do to balance the systems ahead of time. So if you guys have questions for me on any of the stuff that I talked about today, or comments on the video, or if you're going through something, subscribe to my channel. I'm always posting more stuff. I've been off the last couple of weeks, just like redoing a ton of my systems and working on some other content. So I'm like back to my at least once a week posting stuff. But comment on the video if you have any input or your own scenarios that you've been through, or even just share the video with somebody that has struggled with this or is struggling, could use maybe a different perspective. I work all across the country with the clientele that I work with. All the testing that I do, everything is done remotely. So it's all set up. I do GI map, stool, DNA analysis testing. It is a quantitative process. It's not the breath testing. It's not some range. It is actual numbers, so we know exactly what's in your system. It's over 50 pathogens. We measure your gut microbiome balance, the exact strains of bacteria and pathogens that are in your system, as well as the intestinal inflammatory markers. We can see how your pancreas and your gallbladder are functioning. There are a lot of markers for autoimmunity. So that gives us a ton of insight. I do HTMA mineral analysis testing. That is testing for heavy metals and mineral toxicity in the body. Mineral imbalances create a lot of other issues in the system. Those balances need to be completely balanced. Those systems need to be completely balanced in order for the system to function properly. Depletion in specific minerals can lead to heavy metal toxicities and vice versa. Or certain synergistic and antagonistic relationships in minerals can create imbalances in other ways, and minerals kind of lead the body in how the other nutrients react, how our hydration levels are, how the cells react, how things function. So they're great testing to pair together. And then we have the comprehensive blood testing for the hormones. And so I have a combination of different packages, coaching packages, consulting. Please reach out if you are curious about any of it. If you want more information, happy to chat with you about some of the options that I have. You can visit my website at spectrumwellness.biz. You can follow me on Instagram at Casey Lee Shepherd. Info is below in the description. Please follow, like, and share. And continue to wait for more content posted.